Welcome to another episode of Consumer Engagement in an Omnichannel World. Our co-hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers in store, online, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Shri and Peter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CPGGUYS podcast. I'm Peter V.S. Bond, your co-host. I'm also the Vice President of Retail Strategy at PowerViews. I'm joined by my co-host. He's an e-commerce luminary. He's an entrepreneur in his own right. He is the Bugs to my Daffy. He's the Simon to my Garfunkel. He's the Scooby to my Shaggy. Shri, how you doing today?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Peter. And the Yankees were half game ahead of the Dodgers at the time of this recording.
Oh, pathetic, Shri. Pathetic. In any event,
I'm just sad, Peter, that the baseball season at the time we recorded this, a third of it is already over and we're only games in.
And I haven't even had a Dodger dog all year. I mean, it's been bad, Shri. This is tough living. In any event, you notice that it's just Shri and me today, something a little unusual, kind of a retro throwback. We wanted to just talk about the current state of retail, and that involved him and me talking through a number of topics we think are pretty relevant. And as I opened up my tablet this morning, Shri, I saw news that Walmart had released its earnings. Its comp store sales for the quarter ending July 31st were up over 9%, and its digital sales were up over 90%. So let's start with that topic. What do you think about those numbers?
Not surprised at all. The thing that I'm really shocked by, though, is how Wall Street has treated the results. Like, Amazon's results were announced approximately 3 weeks ago, and the stock price went up about 8 or 9% and then settled in the 2-3% gain range. Walmart in pre-market was up a good 6%, and it's currently trading 1% below yesterday's close. To me, what that signals is a ton of consumers are actually at Walmart spending their stimulus checks, and they're buying food and bev, like everyday essentials. Walmart, of course, is the food and bev grocery giant of this country and was and will be the future grocery giant of this country. But that's where the money is going. And I think Wall Street is clearly showing signals that whether it's Amazon, whether it's Walmart, this is temporary and not really rewarding those with great outcomes from a stock price perspective. And I think Walmart is really enjoying the benefit of a lot of trips actually coming into Walmart because they've consistently, through the pandemic, stayed open. So consumers have kind of associated themselves with it and said, hey, I'm going to get my groceries from Walmart. And guess what? They have amazing prices too. And I think we know that. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of surprised that the street didn't respond as positively to Walmart's results. 9% comp store sales for in-store is outstanding. And they're leading the way in the grocery class of trade. We think of them as a mass merchant, but to your point, they really are the largest grocery retailer. They sell more groceries than Kroger, more than Albertsons. And that, to me, demands a measure of respect that I don't necessarily think the investment community is giving them. People like Walmart. And let's talk a little bit about, Walmart joining in partnership with Instacart. That gives them yet another digital channel. They had been focused on their click and collect solution. Now they have a home delivery solution, in addition to the Walmart Express solution that they'd rolled out in some.
And I gotta say,
I think they're pretty strong.
In a large part, Peter, if you look at the results, 97% e-commerce growth this quarter. It's that home delivery angle and the click and collect angle that have really fired like all guns blazing. And is it sustainable? Is this the way of the future? Are they going to get 97% growth quarter over quarter? I don't think so. But what's I think for sure now, looking at 2 quarters back to back, is as long as this pandemic continues, Walmart and Amazon are going to enjoy retail growth of significant proportions. But if I'm one of the commercial leaders in one of those 2 companies, I'm worried about how I'm going to build my 2021 plans, because the expectation leadership is going to have of you in the industry, forget leadership, the industry is going to have of you is 2021, second quarter, I want 97% growth in e-com. Mark, good luck.
I think that falls under the adage, no good deed goes unpunished when it comes
Absolutely.
to budgeting for the next cycle. So absolutely. And I think brands have got to be very focused on these tremendous numbers. They're under the same pressure, right? I've seen quite a number of food and beverage brands that are more retail focused than food service focused, realizing some incredible growth numbers. You and I were talking about one just the other day. The question is, how can they leverage? If I'm an e-commerce leader at those retail, at one of those brands, and I see all this growth going on at retail, and I'm experiencing that myself, how do I leverage that to ensure that I can start preparing for the future and making sure my company is ready for D2C in a big way?
Let's break that down into two pieces. Let's say there's the world of essentials and staples, and there's a world of consumer discretionaries. And let's just look at my recent alma mater in the cosmetics giant Revlon, from where I spent a year leading ecom. And the truth is, at this point, a lot of people are not using cosmetics like they used to. Cosmetics is a discretionary purchase. Some may call it a staple, a necessity, but for the most part, the industry has always recognized it as a discretionary purchase. And I think the way the industry is headed, this is the first time for all of us. Outside the Great Depression, none of us have really experienced any really crazy outcome like we are right now, being home, indoors, can't really go anywhere, things of that nature. I genuinely feel, Peter, that in many discretionary categories, the numbers aren't going to come back. They're just not going to come back. Certain discretionary categories, even when you take a deep dive in, are probably going to be much more adversely impacted. We already referred to cosmetics, beauty, skincare, things of that nature. The one that I think is going to benefit significantly and move over into the world of essentials or staples is natural wellness, health and wellness, self-care, things of that nature are going to benefit significantly. Electronics got a natural boost because everyone's at home and they're using all kinds of devices. Apparel has taken a massive shrink, and I don't think that's going to come back again to its old heydays. So from a brand perspective, if you're in food and bev, this is your moment. And because there's more at-home cooking versus on-premise consumption and dining. And it looks at least very bullishly at this stage. I'm not bearish. Bullishly, we're a year away, next fall, from life returning to on-premise dining.
Sri, let me address 2 points you made there. One around apparel. I couldn't agree with you more. As the Zoom meetings at my company and with clients have progressed over the last couple of months, increasingly, you're not seeing the face. People aren't turning on Zoom. It's because they're not dressed up. They're not applying makeup. They're not doing their hair, and those are not essential to living your life.
Look at you and me, Peter. Look at you and me. When we started this in April, we had jackets on. Then I would bring then we had Yankees caps on. Then we had my Indian Nehru jacket on, ethnic wear. But I would still call that the discretionary luxury dress. And look at us today. What's on your t-shirt today?
It's last year's U.S. Open logo.
T-shirt. And I've got a casual party shirt on. And I think this is our new reality. Well said.
Let me get back to the other thing you mentioned around food and beverage. I am going to take a little bit of a different position on health and wellness. What I've learned from my time working at Spins, and certainly my time at Kroger, which coincided with the last economic downturn, was that people want to follow health and wellness lifestyles so long as they are economically able to do so. What that means is that there were significant downturns in following a gluten-free or complying with a non-GMO lifestyle if the cost of the products are there. So I would say to any food and beverage manufacturer, if you want to win shoppers on health lifestyles, find a way to deliver products that meet those lifestyle requirements, but aren't what you're seeing in the marketplace right now, which is tremendously expensive relative to comparable national brands. Like, there are retailers that are doing this effectively. You don't have to go to Whole Foods. If you go to someone like Fresh Time, which is owned by the Meyer family, not owned by Meyer, the grocery store, but they're based out of Chicago and have about 70 to 90 stores in the northern Midwest. What you see there are products that are much more price affordable and comparable to a national grocery chain. So I would just say to your point about food and beverage, this is your time. This is your time also to gobble up consumers who are looking to be able to live those health lifestyles, but do so in a restricted budget era, because people who don't have a job and have to conserve their money are not going to be buying expensive products simply because it's a health lifestyle. They will compromise.
Yeah, some of the startups that I work with, Peter, two areas that are personal to me and I've researched a lot are diabetic, the need state of diabetic, as well as the need state of high blood pressure or low blood pressure. And a large part of those two need states comes from healthy eating or eating habits in general,
Yeah.
and what you put in your body. I think you and I have spent enough time in the industry to know that there are choices one gets in the industry. You get fun for you products, which are more entertainment, party oriented, snacking, ready to go, things of that nature. They're better for you products. And then there are best for you kind of healthy eating products. I would challenge food and bev manufacturers with less dollar capital available in the house via income. There's going to be a tendency for people to buy the ready to go, cheaper alternatives. This is your moment to kind of step up and meet the halfway in the interest of the country and overall self-care, healthcare to do better. And I think that's where I was going, Peter.
Yeah, and going back to Walmart, I think they understand this and they're starting to address that from an assortment perspective. They carry SKUs of organic milk in whole and 2% and skim under their great value line that competes with the likes of Horizon and other national brands. So they understand that. They're going to be able to deliver on that. National brands have to figure out how to do that. And if they do, that'll be fine. The other thing I'll say about Walmart and digital, and this probably goes for everyone to this issue of health and wellness, you need to be able to help your consumers find that on the digital shelf. Like
Yep.
if you, it can't just be buried on the PDP as one of the tags. You have to be able to search for that, because if someone doesn't have that, and give them some of those key predefined health lifestyle tags that you can filter by, if they don't know that, they're not going to be able to find it, and they're not going to be comfortable shopping through your platform. So making sure that those tags are in the search, on the PDPs, even on the PLPs, whatever. Doing that is going to attract those consumers and make your site stickier to them.
So I think what you're referring to, Peter, is user experience design. And I don't feel any retailer, Amazon included, has really mastered or conquered user experience design. But what Amazon has done successfully is conquered search. And kind of, for lack of a better term, I would say they own search. So let's jump to Amazon.
Yeah.
Given all the attention, Amazon too had spectacular results, and Wall Street, unlike Walmart, has rewarded them for Q2's results. And the stock continues to tend upward, while Peter and I don't forecast the future, and we don't measure stock movement as a result of success or failure. We look at actual topics, initiatives, things of that nature. Amazon has a ton going on in the marketplace, including the latest announcement they had at their shopping cart. You think that's just another one of those like the dash buttons? You think it's here to stay? What's going on with Amazon? I mean, is this Amazon's shining moment? They've stepped up and they've captured a certain share of retail that's never going to go away, and they're sucking the oxygen in the room?
Well, let's break that down a bit, Sri. Is Amazon just so big that they're ultimately going to win? I remember when A&P had 5,000 stores across the United States. They have none. I remember when Grand Union had 3,000 grocery stores across the U.S. They've been non-existent for nearly 20 years. So I also remember when I was at a company in 1992, and the person who owned both Kmart and Walmart had to split up and chose to keep Kmart because he thought they were the future. To your point, I don't want to make any predictions because they can be disastrous. But as for Amazon and its technology, their grocery store with the cashierless checkout, it's a little bit different than the Go stores, which were all driven by cameras around the store. This is about the product being put into the grocery cart. We'll see what happens with that. There have been some attempts to do this in the past. I know that Food Lion with their Bloom stores tried this. I know that Ahold with their Stop and Shop stores tried some things around this. What matters to me most is that Amazon is trying. It's about testing and learning, failing fast, figuring out what's working, but at the same time, it also gets them a tremendous amount of free PR. They benefit very greatly from these stories appearing in the marketplace and everybody talking like you and I talking about it. I mean, they're getting rent-free space in your head and my head right now. So good on them. They seem to have figured that out pretty well. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
I think it's a clear indication to me that even the great Amazon realizes e-commerce alone cannot continue the incredible growth that they've enjoyed, that to achieve scale, they need to go into the in-store business model. And that's what these tests are at the end of the day. They've always been about the consumer. They've always been at the cutting edge of technology, and hence getting into the store business model with Amazon comes with some additional twists to it, very positively focused on the shopper, the consumer, things of that nature. But I think hidden underneath the curtains is a little bit of a different story over here. And that story is Walmart's success came through acquiring product from brands and manufacturers, having great relationships via JBP, and then being able to extend that into value for the consumer due to scale. Amazon's growth, if you dig through the numbers and dissect them, 3P is way ahead of 1P. And 3P is largely a territory where Amazon doesn't have significant control like they do on the 1P business. I'm not insinuating in any way Amazon doesn't have control, because they need to govern it. But that's where it starts and that's where it ends. And as a result, Amazon knows that if it doesn't significantly scale the 1P business, that from a profitability standpoint, passing value back to the consumer standpoint, a different engine is winning. It's not them. And they have no real participation in that other than collecting a certain fee. And I think a large part of getting into the in-store model is not just scale and growth, it's also how to make their 1P business significantly more successful.
Yeah, the 3P business at Amazon is always going to be bigger than 1P, simply because their model is being the marketplace or the destination to get just about anything you need. And they can't build fulfillment centers large enough to handle all of the products that are available in their 3P marketplace. They can certainly.
But what if Amazon buys one of these chains that is, you and I have been
stores?
Yeah,
sitting there and fulfillment centers.
Yeah.
J.C. Penney, whoever. It could be a very interesting proposition. What if Amazon?
I don't even mean home delivery. I mean click and collect.
No, I mean, what if Amazon decides to I came from CVS, and this is not with any knowledge of anything. I've been out of CVS for quite a number of years, but remember when Target was losing money at the pharmacy, and they decided in a brilliant move to sell their pharmacies to CVS, and now CVS operates them. And for CVS, it was just incorporating another 1,000 to 1,600 pharmacies, and they could turn them all profitably immediately because they already had all of the infrastructure to manage compliance and what have you.
That's what I'm talking about, Peter.
That they wanted to just focus on their pharmacy, and they turned around and sold their front of store business, which is a very small part of CVS's portfolio, to someone like Amazon. Now Amazon's got 9,600 distribution points for click and collect. I mean, there are a lot of different ways this can play out. I think Amazon's in a great position. I will just caution people with what the expectations are from retail. When they bought Whole Foods, I think you and I remember the predictions that, oh my God, the grocery industry went into full-scale panic. And where are they now? Well, Walmart's still the biggest grocery player. Kroger's still number 2, and Albertson's still number 3.
I spent March 2016's NACDS, every single customer that I met at Johnson & Johnson or our management team met, I spent 30 minutes answering questions on the future of e-commerce. That was my role, 30 minutes in a 60-minute meeting. I'll never forget that moment. But you referred to marketplaces, Peter. So obviously, Amazon has really been the leader in the space of marketplaces. It's a great business model, and it lends itself perfectly to the everything each a store, which is how Amazon started business. So what do you do if you're like Walmart, you're one of the other industrial giants here in grocery retail,
Well, you
Walmart,
saw what Kroger
Kroger,
just announced.
Target?
The Kroger you just saw announced a partnership with Miracle to create an endless
Yeah.
aisle from a 3P standpoint. The question is, can you make it relevant enough? Does it truly complement what you have to offer, or do you just become a marketplace for everything else that you can see on Amazon? Or do you want to limit the marketplace so it still is kind of true to the purpose of what a grocery store is? So do you want that?
So let me flip that for you. Let
Pardon
me
me?
flip that. Let me flip that and ask you the same question slightly different way. Your Walmart and Target, you're a general merchandiser, and you
Yep.
also your food and bev grocery is your larger part of your business, but 30-40% of your business is general merchandise like Amazon. It's the everything store, not the countless number of SKUs like Amazon. But you're Kroger now. You're largely a food and bev grocery retailer that does a handful of other things. 3P marketplace, how does that fit in?
Well, remember, for Walmart, the appeal originally for groceries was traffic, right? Groceries are a high frequency purchase for households. And so introducing grocery, I remember when we launched the grocery and gasoline division at Priceline back in 1999, 2000, the reason we went with groceries was because we needed a mechanism to drive traffic to the base Priceline site and introduce them to the travel business, which was where they made their money. They were breaking even at best for groceries. They were burning capital at a pretty phenomenal rate. So Kroger's already got the traffic draw. The question is, can they make some additional margin above and beyond what they're used to seeing for groceries by adding on that marketplace? That to me is what I think the end result or thought strategy could be for the likes of Kroger.
To me, Peter, the big thing that's a light bulb is going off in my head here on Kroger is the second largest grocer in the country after Walmart. And if you're a startup and you want to get scale and you want to get noticed within the Kroger ecosystem, while Kroger may not have the bandwidth on the shelf to accommodate you, you just got a new vehicle to be part of Kroger, which is the miracle-based 3P ecosystem. So to me, it's a great way for startups to be part of the great Kroger reach that they have. 80 million shoppers year over year, unique households and shoppers. And on top of that, it's a moment for Kroger to look at the SKUs, units, brands that are doing very well on the 3P marketplace they may not have in store and actually sub them in for the store model.
Yeah, I think Kroger is still very much at a nascent stage of how they're going about doing e-commerce. Obviously, they're still in partnership with Instacart. I don't see that changing. That drives a lot of volume to their stores. They have their own click list site. I think they're no longer using that term, but it's a combination of their click and collect home delivery and ship to home solution. But they still have, to the point you made earlier about customer experience, quite a ways to go to make sure that their experience is up to expectations and to some of their competition, particularly when you come to D2C brands, which seem to build really great customer experiences, even more so than some of the big retailers that seem to have some limitations and have to go through so much more process and requirements to make even modest changes to their site. When all of the IT hours and resources and plans are budgeted out a year and a half, and if something happens during that year and a half to change the game. Sorry, everything's already locked and loaded. You're not going to get any changes to that. So they don't have quite the flexibility that more nimble D2C brands have at just saying, yep, let's just change our platform, change our CX. Let's give it a shot and see what happens, because there's not as much risk.
So, I want to come back to the Target and Instacart partnership for a moment, and then the future of Instacart. But
Walmart Instacart partnership.
I'm sorry, the Walmart Instacart partnership.
Didn't want to break any news here. There's no Target Instacart partnership that we're aware of.
The Yankees are still half game ahead at the time of this recording.
Stop,
by the way.
Street. Stop.
So I there's a hidden message that I just got from you over here. You referred to how, at most large scale brands and retailers, cycles, IT is really a service, and the budgets are set at the previous year's annual operating plan, and there's no room for movement. And having been in leadership myself at very large brands, I can tell you categorically, it's just a fact that year over year, you look to IT for productivity to meet your quarter's numbers. There's no ifs, buts, this is reality of how our industry is built. But I think the hidden message from Peter here is, if you're in IT leadership, there should be a big smile on your face. Because what has happened in the last 6 months and what continues to happen is retailers are adapting. To me, the move by Kroger to bring Miracle on board and begin experimentation, talk about what's going to be next, etc., is an indication that even the great Kroger is willing to adapt more than the actual outcome. Walmart has already demonstrated its adaptation, and Target has been adapting. I would argue for a whole 5 years, they've been kind of moving towards this digital bandwagon. But if you're an IT folks, this is your moment to step up, meet your business partners, and actually assist them on what's going to be, I would say, a journey which is going to require a lot of technology assistance and help. And I see it as twofold. One is the user experience Peter has already discussed, physically coding things on the website, rewriting platforms, things of that nature. But there's a second part. If you're in IT, you are reading about technology and trends and what the consumer uses every single day. Bring that data to your commercial business partners. Bring that data to your chief customer officer, to your CMO, to your brand managers, to your brand directors, to your brand presidents, and talk to them about it. And now I'll get off my technology soapbox so we can go back to Target to Instacart.
Before we do that, I do want to talk about some of these brick and mortar retailers are moving into omnichannel. You know that a couple of years ago, Kroger announced its partnership with Ocado in the UK. And the question will be, when right now all of these grocery retailers that are doing click and collect and home delivery are still pretty much using their retail stores to facilitate that click and collect and picking operations, I should say. When are we going to start to see some of these retailers be able to, or does it even make sense to open up a dark store to serve a large market like New York City? That's essentially what Fresh Direct is, right? They don't have retail stores. They have their own picking facility, and that allows them to do it. When are we going to see some of the big retailers engage in that? Is that on the horizon? And how can brands help from a supply chain perspective improve the overall process if that's not the direction they go to improve what they're doing in their physical stores?
So let me flip that around and say, if you're a supply chain leader at one of the brands, you're the chief supply chain officer, and all of a sudden you now have this new opportunity, challenge, call it what you may, of constantly figuring out how to keep the dark store in stock, the shelf in stock. You built your entire supply chain ecosystem around case packs going into a warehouse and then relied on the retailer largely to figure it out from there. That's the business model of today that we have, and how commercial the commercial construct of a P&L is today. And then you have Instacart. And Instacart has indeed figured out how to do the click and pick for you from a store. Many of these super regionals, which you're referring to, and the everyday grocery store at your locality that you're used to going to, Instacart has also figured out how to commercial investment required by these retailers into the price of the product that the consumer pays. And everybody wins. And the consumer with Instacart has indeed shown the tendency to be okay with that 5 or 7% price increase to accommodate for it. Now let's go back to the brand question and meeting the retailer halfway. If a dark store is built by the retailer, there's additional investment, capital investment, and for again, lack of a better word, costs incurred in the ecosystem. Who pays for the additional 5-7%? I've heard rumors that certain retailers in Canada are asking manufacturers to tag on a e-commerce fee of X% in the trade. Now, the question is, do brands prefer that? Do they prefer the Instacart model? Do retailers prefer the Instacart model and avoid the capital investments required in the first place? To me, the winning formula is Instacart. And the simple reason for that is, just like retailers train consumers, you spend an hour and a half browsing the store, your own dime, your own nickel, you drive your car. There's a cost associated with driving your car. It doesn't come free. You pay for gas. You're spending time in your commute to the grocery store, even if it's 15 minutes each way. You put it in your trunk, in your car. The consumers have been trained that that's okay. Instacart is training the consumer X% increase in price. I don't know what that number is. It varies by SKU. Is perfectly okay to give you back 2 hours in your day. Isn't that the preferred kind of commercial model of the future for brands and retailers? Do you think Instacart is going to keep winning, therefore?
Yeah, I do. And I think that it's also through their partnerships with retailers, not just in terms of making their stores and their assortment available and inventory available at store level. It's also about scheduling time and availability so that those Instacart shoppers are not disturbing or otherwise distracting from the in-store traffic that those retailers are getting. So I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, Costco figured out that the best thing to do is not their stores were jammed during the pandemic, the physical stores. They would open up their stores an hour or two early so that Instacart shoppers could get in there. They didn't disturb any of the customers. In fact, they decreased the traffic that they had been seeing previously. And people just adjusted to the fact that if they wanted to shop at Costco through Instacart, you were going to get your delivery at 8:00 in the morning. People adjust, and
Well
they
said.
built a really great model. Now, what are they doing with Walmart? Well, they're testing it in 4 markets, 3 West Coast cities and Tulsa. And those are markets very valuable to Amazon, particularly with their fresh business. So they're taking them head on, and they're saying, we're not going to just seed this to you, and we're gonna make your life challenging. And whether this is the whole issue, is it a match made in heaven, a marriage made in heaven, or is this a marriage of convenience? Well, I don't think it really matters at this point. It's just a good business decision, and it's going to help Walmart give them more traction with omni-channel mechanisms of some can go into the store and do all their shopping, some will click and collect, some will get home delivery, and it puts more pressure on Amazon. So I think they're in a really good position.
I mean, as retail progresses and we emerge out of this situation, the strange situation we're encountering now, I think what's for sure is retail foot traffic in store is never going to come back to the levels that we've experienced back in February 2020 of this year. So why can't the Instacart concierge shopper replace that foot traffic even at 4 p.m. in the afternoon? Because the store's got the space. All of a sudden, if a shopper isn't in store and it's the Instacart shopper, we're back to square one, life's all pretty, and the commercial model stays intact because Instacart has figured out how to get the consumer to indeed reward him with concierge service for a value that Instacart receives. Isn't that a winning formula?
You see Instacart and how they do their pricing mechanisms. When you give them flexibility as to the delivery, you can save a little money. That allows them to then use big data in partnership with the retailer to figure out when is the right time, based upon traffic patterns, to go pick that order and deliver it so that it provides the most value to the consumer from a price perspective, but also the most value to the retailer and Instacart from a resource scheduling perspective. It's a good
Absolutely, Peter.
strategy.
I think Instacart's here to grow. Instacart's here to stay. But you referred to Costco and the store traffic growth that Costco has experienced due to bulk needs and bulk purchases, pantry loading, etc. What happens when that human tendency goes down and bulk pantry loading is not required anymore? Just pantry loading is required, but not bulk pantry loading. What happens to Club go forward?
Yeah, Club's an interesting story because obviously Costco's strategy has been partnership with Instacart. They have an e-com site. I would argue that it doesn't reflect their full assortment. So none of the perishable items are on their site. It's a much more limited assortment that's available on their site. They've just outsourced Instacart. But remember that the bulk of their members are commercial entities as opposed to individual consumers. So they're much more attuned to the needs of restaurants and independent business people who are shopping it for their services. And that part of their business has been challenged by all these restaurant closures. So food service has taken a real hit. I look on the other end of the spectrum, and here's BJ's, right? BJ's is a club. It's a regional club on the East Coast and moving its way west. 75% of their members are individual households, and the assortment that they carry is very reflective of that. They have more products in an average club store than Costco does, and those items are decidedly more grocery focused. I just saw a report that was issued late last year by Incisive in partnership with another e-commerce platform, and it was called a digital maturity report, and it analyzed grocery retailers all over the world. The top of the list was BJ's. They were considered to be the most digitally mature from a supply chain perspective, from an experience perspective. And you know that, again, transparency sake purposes, Power Reviews, my company, works with BJ's, and we've been very involved with them in ensuring that the content that they carry, particularly around authentic feedback from customers, is prominent in the search results, on the product pages, on the PLPs, and that's helping them sell a lot more products. And they have on their site a full assortment, including products that are perishable, that say available only in store. They still list it on their site, and you can get information about that. Now, right now, the only way you can order the perishable products for home delivery is through Instacart. Their click and collect is still shelf stable, but that'll change. They'll begin to do, just like Target is now doing curbside grocery. Expect BJ's to do that in short order. So I think where's the future for Club? And then there's in between, there's Sam's Club, which is a little not quite as progressive from a grocery perspective as BJ's is, but certainly more than Costco is. So what's the future for them? I guess each of them are going to chart their own course. And the question is, how well are the other two players going to embrace the future of digital maturity the way that BJ's has and is being recognized by the trade as having done so?
Which leads me to a penultimate topic for today, which is the future of retail. I think what I hear you say, Peter, is it's definitely digitally anchored. As browsing continues more and more, and human attention, my favorite topic, media, comes to bear. And it's really, retail has been the war for human attention. Who could drive the best traffic in store via a variety of promotional levers, such as display, lobby, front of store, back of store, end cap, Department 82, AK Impulse, things of that nature, anchored by promotional pricing, offers, coupons, which evolved to digital coupons, etc. I think the biggest aha moment now for retailers is who can win the war on digital search. clearly Amazon is winning it today. But I think there's a second coming of Google now for the war on digital search for products. There's the Amazon shopper, which markedly goes to Amazon already and they're not browsing on Google. There's that. And then there's the everything else shopper, which is going to Google and trying to discover, find products. And that's how many startups have been born. This is an opportunity for retailers to kind of come into the territory with deep pockets, really hone up in the search space and step up big time. To me, the one that really plays that space of digital search out is a winner long term.
Yeah, Tree, there's no question that digital's here to stay. I mean, I've been trying to get this phone loose from my hand for 2 years, and I just can't get it off.
You and me both.
Yeah, I know. But what the retailers have to understand is it's not there's e-com and then there's physical. They really, and we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's about the blend between the physical and the digital. People bring their phones into stores. If you don't, they are used to and accustomed to searching for content, searching for answers right there in their physical store. If you don't make it easy for them to do that, they will talk to the people in Seattle through the mobile app that I guarantee you is on most of their phones. But let's get back to something that our good friend Brian Gildenberg said during one of the earlier episodes, and this gets to some of the questions that we asked earlier about is Amazon going to win? He brought up very prominently that Amazon still hasn't solved the issue of the fact that it takes 10 times as long to buy 10 products as it does to buy one product. That's why we still go to Target to buy seasonal items like beach items or holiday items, because we walk to that section, there it all is, we throw it into our cart and we're out the door. It's a much harder process on Amazon. So from my perspective, the retailer that can beat Amazon is the one who solves that issue, right? That will give them a strategic advantage over what seems right now to be a bit of an insurmountable wall that Amazon has created.
And I feel, Peter, there's Amazon and then there's everybody else. The everybody else has already trained the consumer. It's about a basket. It's about a trip. Amazon has trained the consumer. You come to me when you need one thing. And then you can always build up, but there's no real mechanism for building up. Instacart, mechanism for building up. Click and collect, grocery, mechanism for building up. Amazon, eaches. And then you want to build a cart, it's repeat the each, repeat the each, repeat different each, repeat a different each. So to me, as you said, win search, win cart and basket, find out how to get home delivery done as quickly as possible, same day. These are some of the levers, and there's no doubt, nobody should be discussing. We should remove this word e-commerce from existence, because it unfortunately causes people to take a step back and say, no, e-commerce is expensive. I don't want to do it. It's all about the sale. This is a war for consumer attention. If you have user experience, you can stick to your business model of carts, which is actually great for the consumer because it drives value. The more you buy, the better value you get. And Peter and I don't need to create a new value system for that. It's been around for 100 years plus. Those are going to be the winners, and that's the future of retail. It's about attention, and digital was, and will be who does attention the best and can captivate your attention. E-commerce is only secondary.
Yeah, that really sounds to me like digital influence, not e-commerce.
Yeah, and so I want to go back to one of our guests that was mid-August, talked to us from Coca-Cola, and John Mount clearly said content is king, which comes back to, I think that's the second part of this. You can have awesome user experience, you can build baskets, you can figure out home delivery, but if your digital shelf is an A++, and digital shelf has a few components which I really want to reiterate. It's the quality of the image, it's the quality of the videos you put out there, it's your SEO-based titles. But most importantly, I do not feel any longer Amazon is the only review shop in town. People will be looking at their grocer of choice when they build their basket for home shopping and delivery or click or call. Reviews on retail native platforms. And so that leads me to also say, will syndicating reviews be the only way? Wouldn't retailers have to build their own reviews platform to build trust and authenticity? But the importance of ratings and reviews is significant to me and to many families. And I think there's another huge opportunity for retailers to really jump ahead of that and conquer that.
Yeah, Shri, if the one thing I'll say is that the brand that a retailer the most important brand to a retailer is a brand for which they can't syndicate content. And that's their own brand. It's their private label.
Private label.
So it provides them the highest amount of margin. So if they really want trust and authenticity to influence their business, they have to get into the native content collection, if for no other reason than to help consumers trust that brand and be able to convert from national brand to private label, and in doing so, improve the retailer's overall margin. We know that this is effective from a number of retailers we've worked with. Increasingly, retailers are looking to generate their own content because they understand that it not only helps with private label, but generally speaking, it provides them with reviews that their competitors don't have. And remember, Google dedupes syndicated reviews. So when you have your own native content, that increases, right, the SEM of what's going on, because you now have something that your competitors don't have.
Again, well said, Peter. So let's close this episode out with, clearly, this is about human consumer attention, user experience, e-commerce at the tail end of it. There's capabilities we just discussed, ratings and reviews, the digital shelf, SEO, winning the war on search, things of that nature, click and collect, things of that nature, which leads me to the last topic for today, after which Peter will close this episode out, and that is talent.
Ooh.
Is the industry...
Do you have any of that? I was looking for that.
Is the industry ready?
This is the time for e-commerce or digital commerce professionals to really shine. We heard from one of our previous guests, Suzanne, that there is a high demand for this, but there's also a challenge, right? Most of these brands and retailers looking for that talent, they have a lot coming at them because of the economic downturn and the unemployment rate soaring from below 4% to around 10%. So the question is, how do you break through? How do you find that opportunity? And I think what we talked about with her is, I would just reiterate, which is find your opportunity, the company that you think is right for you, and build your case and network your way in. Because just simply applying to an opportunity and expecting to be plucked out of the 6,000 submissions isn't going to work. You know what your skills are. You can assess what that company needs, build the plan, use your network, get in there, get the warm invitation and introduction, and sell yourself as a professional in this space. And that's how you're going to succeed.
I'm going to call it the PVST wisdom moment. And if I was an animator, I'd have shown a little bulb coming out. And that PVST...
Look, there's a bulb above my head.
I think PVST's wisdom moment is network, folks. And I'm going to close this episode out repeating what I said at a Orca Pacific webinar early August. And the message is pretty clear to me. It is, if you are a digital leader, it doesn't matter whether you're in supply chain, whether you're in HR, whether you're commercial sales, whether you're in commercial marketing, a brand leader, procurement, it really doesn't matter, folks. This is your moment. If you're a digital leader, you owe it to the industry, an industry which has long suspended the transformation towards the digital future for a variety of reasons, infrastructure, things of that nature. This is your moment to challenge your leaders and build a bright future, because the responsibility of every one of us in the industry, brand or retailer, is the same. Deliver quality products, add value to the consumer. With that, we will close out this episode. Peter.
I want to thank all of our audience for joining us today, and remind them that if you want to find all of our content, be it our podcasts, our YouTube videos, our LinkedIn pages, our profiles, our Instagram and Twitter. All you have to do now is go to cpgguys.com. That's our very simple, very comprehensive URL. And in particular, we really ask if you could go to Apple Podcasts and please give us a rating. It really helps us in terms of amplifying our voice. So go to tinyurl.com/Apple CPG podcast. Give it a star rating. And if you're inclined, write a review too. We really do appreciate that feedback. Shri, I think this has been a great episode of us just digging into things that have been burning on our brain, and they've been kind of collecting, and it seemed like the perfect time to break from our what seems to be our more common interview-based conversations with other guests. I know we've got another similar type of conversation coming up very shortly, doing a real episode on my favorite topic, just general rank punditry, which to a degree this was. But I want to thank you for joining me today and going through this process, because you and I think I speak for both of us. We have a lot of fun doing this.
Absolutely. And thank you, Peter, and to all our listeners. And I couldn't resist this. And now batting number 2, the CPG guys. The CPG guys. Sorry.
That's great. Well, listen, everybody, thanks again, and look forward to you joining us on the next episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Have a good day.
Thank you.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.